Gallo's acquisition of Four Roses, WhistlePig's new CEO, Barrell Craft Spirits facility sale, Uncle Nearest receivership update, and Washington's move towards 0.05 DUI limit. Hi everyone, welcome to the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon and Distillery News Podcast, your commercial-free and therefore money-free bourbon podcast for Monday, February 9, 2026. I am Ed, and I am joined by my usual co-host, friend, and bourbon aficionado, Dean Langdon. Dean, how are you doing?
Very well today, Ed. Very well, thank you. We're both coming off a wonderful lunch at the kitchen table at Beam, so that's a great way to start an afternoon, and we're all nourished and well fed, so that's a good thing, right? No rumbling stomachs during this podcast.
I'll believe that when I don't hear it.
So what exciting bourbon events did you get to experience this week, or what have you done?
Well, we've done quite a bit actually. Things are picking up as the news, as we can hear from all those teaser headlines. So yeah, so I went to we go to those monthly bourbon dinners at Veronese restaurant in Louisville, and so they had a Four Roses dinner this past week, and that was great. I mean, the flight included the 2025 LE, so that's always nice.
Yeah.
And the food was fantastic, and it was led by their national brand ambassador, Tucker. Sorry, Tucker, I don't remember your last name offhand, but probably not more than one Tucker being national brand ambassador of Four Roses.
Nope.
So, and then I thought there was irony in that because we came home to find the news of the Four Roses sale on that same day. So, and then on that same day earlier, the Trail Hotel here in Bardstown, the new bourbon destination hotel that opened. Well, somewhere around last spring already, I guess, is when it first opened. But they're sort of reintroducing the brand. They've got a new general manager, but other new management and other changes that have happened there. And so they had a industry event where people could go and check it out. So I got a full tour, got to see the rooms and everything, which I'd actually been wanting to do. And they had actually really good past appetizers beforehand, and there were some distilleries there that were pouring whiskey. Actually, Heaven Hill was there, and Preservation was there, and then they were also pouring their own Trail Hotel label, rye and bourbon.
So they got their own label, not just a barrel pick that they did. They've actually got somebody making something for them. That's cool. That's a different niche for a hotel, right? To actually have some of the distillers there, to have an industry event. I think that's great. Great marketing. You got to get your name out there.
Well, it's nice for fitting into Bardstown. I mean, and being a bourbon destination type hotel, to have the distilleries actually represented there. Yeah. So I mean, that was a lot of fun, and of course they had cocktails and everything as well. And so that was
cool.
Good. Yeah. What about you? What have you done?
Well, I went to an alumni dinner. Shout out to all the folks from Center College who are involved in the industry. There was an alumni dinner in Louisville last night, so we went to that, which was fine. But before that, I got to do a little bit of Whiskey Row stumbling, and so we went to the Pursuit Spirits Trial and Error Bar, which was nice. Had a couple of pours there, and then went over to Michter's and had a very nice flight at Michter's. So that was really nice. Learned a little something at I had a pour of the Derby Town at Pursuit Spirits, which is one of their 375 sort of like Prohibition model, but it wasn't on the shelf up in the gift shop, and so I asked the guy about. I said, we have to keep it behind the counter because of somebody called Churchill Downs. So apparently they got I
heard about that.
Cease and desist of some sort, and not having to take it off the market necessarily, but maybe can't display it. So it's like, and this is just the clerk behind the counter. It's like, what, are we going to spend a lot of money fighting Churchill Downs? Don't think so. We'll just, people that know about it can ask for it. You can get it. So
yeah, I had heard something about that. Which one is Derbytown of those three? Because there's three different ones. There was one that's like, what, a 17-year-old or something? Yeah. And then there are the two others. I've tried them all. They were all good. I can't remember the distinctions though.
I don't remember, and I didn't get out and study the label after I bought it. It's still sitting waiting for me to get around to.
But I think that's actually an old label. So if they actually have the rights to that label, I don't think they would lose to Churchill Downs.
And
because it's a name.
At what cost to find out?
Yeah, not worth it. Right. I'm sure.
Yeah. So, because that's clear. I don't know if they intend to make that an ongoing release. I wasn't sure what they were going to do with those, pre-prohibition 375 line of things, if they intend to make that a one-off or if they're going to have it around. So maybe this will factor into that.
Yeah, I don't know the names per se, but I mean, as far as that series, I thought they were mainly just for the P Club, their club, and then the rest being sold at the distillery.
Yeah,
so you get something special if you go there.
I know Melwood was one of them, but I forget the third one. So
I actually have them all over there, but that would entail walking across the room.
We're tied to the camera at this point.
We are.
So we should get into the news.
We really should.
We'll be here for
there's an awful lot. Yeah.
Yes, there is. So.
All right. Well, I sort of did a spoiler for this first story when I talked about dinner. But by now, people, even though this has only been a couple days, I'm sure everybody's heard. Japanese brewer Kirin Holdings, who's the owner of Four Roses currently, said it will sell the Kentucky bourbon brand Four Roses to E&J Gallo Winery for up to $775 million, and that was according to writers who broke the story. The deal, expected to close in the second quarter of this year, will allow Kirin to reallocate resources towards other growth areas. A Gallo spokesperson said there are no planned changes to the Four Roses operations, production, or distribution.
That's pretty fast. I mean, there was a story late last year, about Kirin trying to market it. There's probably a limited pool of buyers for Four Roses, and at that price. They were hoping to get $1 billion, so this is what, 25% discount more or less.
It sounds like there's some incentive thing built into that
there's
price.
The up to, right?
Yeah.
The up to, there's part of this deal, and obviously we don't know what it is, but that could be based on, what's the actual barrel stock on the day we close, or it could be all sorts of things, right? I mean, I don't know what due diligence they've already done, but that's great. I mean, Gallo is already in the spirits industry. They, I think they own Horse Soldier bourbon. So
I'm not sure they outright own it, but they purchased a significant interest in it.
Okay.
A few years back, which is a whole story in itself. I haven't looked into that in a long time, but I mean, they were going to build that whole complex in Somerset with a big hotel, horse park, entertainment center, distillery, and I don't think that's even started.
Right, yeah.
And they had like a restaurant. They actually had a forward-facing place in Somerset. And don't quote me on this because I've never actually made it there. But I thought the last time I looked into it, it was no longer there, or it's a different name. So I don't know exactly what's happening with any of that. Right. But this is completely different. This is an established brand,
and their purchase. I mean, they're seems like a good match from what I know. You've got somebody who is at least in the industry. Kirin is clearly trying to get out of the industry and focus on other things. It'd be interesting to see if somebody like Bardstown Bourbon or I'm glad they're not selling to Diageo or one of the other huge.
Well, most of those have been going the other direction. They've been closing down or pausing or selling everything that some of their individual brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we talked about this last, and it didn't say any of this currently, but the Kirin's other interest that it wanted to focus in at the time of the announcement of the potential sale, because I don't recall that actually ever being a formal announcement. That was another news story, but was that they wanted to concentrate on the pharmaceutical business of theirs, which made it sound like they were tossing beer by the wayside, which I thought they were a pretty big player in the beer world.
I thought so too, and maybe they still are. I mean, who knows, right? We'll look for the next press releases.
Yeah.
On that, so, but I think that's a positive move. Let's hope it closes, and it means to see. There won't be any changes right away, but over time, Gallo's going to have some ideas about what to do with those properties, and the whole process. So it'll just be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, somebody had already joked that they're waiting for the brandy finished Four Roses.
I was going to go. It's like, hey, what kind of finish are we going to get? Once Gallo takes over. But
I'm still waiting for the Four Roses rye.
Yeah. That'd be lovely. I can't wait.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting. I mean, while they say they're not going to make any changes, nobody buys a company and doesn't make changes.
Right. Yeah.
So we all know something will happen, but hopefully for the best.
Yeah.
I think I had heard that they actually have the same distributors already, Which, if that's the case, that would be a huge.
That's really, yeah.
Because that causes, I know from other companies, hearing people who work for them saying what happens when they get bought and they have to change distributors. That causes so. If that's true, that would certainly be something that would make this go a little easier. All right. So our next story. I guess I'll just sort of read the synopsis. As outside threats continue to jeopardize its future growth, Kentucky bourbon remains a key and substantial contributor to the state's economy, a new report shows. The report was conducted by noted Kentucky economist Dr. Mike Clark using the latest data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. Census Bureau, the Kentucky Department of Revenue, the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, and more trusted sources, and was prepared for the Kentucky Distillers Association. Among the report's top findings, Kentucky's distilling industry now contributes $10.6 billion in annual economic impact to Kentucky, and that's up $9 billion from the last report, which was in early 2024. It supports 23,935 jobs with $2 billion in salaries, wages, and benefits, and that's an increase of more than 800 jobs in the last 2 years, in spite of everything that we hear in the news. The 8th edition of this biennial study, using the latest data from 2024 to 2025, also shows the distilling industry bought a record 84% of its corn from Kentucky farmers, up from 70%, and now generates an all-time high of $372 million in state and local tax revenue. The report does mention recent headwinds and declines in production and sales. The press release states that the Kentucky bourbon's long-term future remains a roller coaster of uncertainty and unpredictability, threatened by a volatile global trade arena, shifting generational consumer tastes, soaring barrel taxes, and evolving market and geopolitical conditions that have slowed alcohol sales and slashed exports. And that's a quote from them. And the full report is 83 pages long, so we'll probably stop here.
Yeah, well, and I didn't read the full report, but I pulled out some other interesting facts from the summary. I mean, there are distillery operations in over a third of Kentucky counties, like 45 out of the 120 counties. We hear about how many barrels are aging in the state now. There's over 17 million barrels of whiskey, 16 million of bourbon. So that's an interesting, there's a lot of other whiskeys aging now. That barrel tax is $75 million last year. It's a chunk of change. Overall, Kentucky produces 27% of the spirits that are distilled in the United States, which is, I think, more than a quarter of the country's output. And MGP is in Indiana, right? So there's another 5%, 10% right there across the river.
And we're not exactly a quarter of the country's population.
No, we're not.
We're a pretty small state.
Very, very industrious and productive here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Yeah. So we both love geeking out on statistics. So there's some good positive statistics about bourbon in Kentucky. So
I mean, at least the synopsis, the executive summary of this painted a much more rosy picture than I think we've been getting from everywhere else. Now, I have to be honest, I did not read the entire 83-page report either, so I don't know, what else could be in there that's not as cheery.
Right. And it wasn't clear to me what time frame it covered. It said 24, 25, but the downturn really started happening in 25, and so it probably isn't factoring that in, right? So like the layoffs at Old Forester and things like that aren't in this report, I don't think.
Yeah, I thought I saw somewhere, at least some of the results, what was in that report, I thought came from like something up to mid-year. So would have gotten some of it.
Sort of like fiscal years usually run, July 1 to June 30, so that wouldn't surprise me. So,
but right, so I mean, it's hard to know that if the next report's going to be as upbeat, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm not sure how much of this we captured. I'm sure that's in this 83-page report, and we can figure out exactly what all that is. But we like to keep things on an upbeat note, so we'll go with what we have there.
It mentioned there's like another $1.45 billion in planned investment in the industry. We'll see if that happens, but heck, if even half of that happens, that's there's still growth going on.
Yeah, I mean, we see the growth all around us, but we also see other projects not continuing to fruition, shut down, and bankruptcies, which we have talked about
We'll get to those. Yeah,
we will. We've got the granddaddy of them all to discuss today again.
But more positivity first.
Yes, right? More positivity. So, WhistlePig Whiskey today welcomed Charles Gibb as its new chief executive. Well, not today. Today when this press release came out, as its new chief executive officer, noting that the appointment marks the next stage of evolution for the WhistlePig brand and its highly awarded super premium whiskey portfolio. Gibb brings global experience in spirits and luxury brand building, having launched Fever Tree's North American arm and previously spearheaded global expansion efforts at Belvedere Vodka, while also holding roles at Bacardi, Diageo, and Moet Hennessy. He says, as a Scot, I could not be more excited to be joining this exceptional American whiskey brand. I thrive in an innovative, dynamic, and entrepreneurial environment. I've been involved with startups, initiated new markets, and transformed developed markets by breaking apart paradigms to accelerate growth. That's exactly what WhistlePig does with whiskey. I guess I should have used my best Scottish accent.
Thank you for not.
With all respect to Mr. Gibb, I will not do that. So Wilco Fasten, co-founder and chairman of WhistlePig Whiskey, said, post an extensive search process, we're excited to welcome Charles to the WhistlePig team as we tackle the next phases of growth. And in my newsletter, I wrote a big editorial about this, but we will discuss it. I'm not going to read that.
For that. Yeah. So, I mean, it is interesting that it sounds like they're almost trying to become more global, and not just because, Mr. Gibb is a Scot, but, to grow, it seems like these companies have to look beyond America, and they have been, and they will continue to be. If things like tariffs ever stabilize, it'll be easier for people like Mr. Gibb to work on the world marketing and get that product out there. So there was in the press release, it said WhistlePig is the fastest growing ultra premium bourbon.
Yeah.
And I question.
I left that part out of my summary because I'm not sure what's substantiating that claim.
Right. Just what exactly is an ultra premium bourbon? So we could pick that apart, but let's hope he can grow it in different markets. That's what he's on there for.
Well, and I thought this was interesting. I mean, what I wrote about sort of at length in my newsletter, there's a number of things that are interesting, and I didn't say this first part in there, but it reminded me a lot of 2 weeks ago when we talked about Company Distilling getting a new CEO, because it was the same thing. It wasn't somebody who's whiskey per se focused. It's another brand expansion growth type person. And I thought very interesting in this whole press release. I mean, that's my summary that I read. I don't read the press release, but in the whole press release, it doesn't mention one word about what it means for the whiskey itself, which I thought was very unusual. All this talk about is growth and expansion and, ultra premium and stuff like that. So, again, I think it's a company hiring somebody purely for the non-whiskey side of it, and then the second thing is that, I mean, I am very confused by WhistlePig. We'll just keep it short, but, they started off it was supposed to be like their original stated goal was to be basically essentially grain to glass of a Vermont rye. They were using Vermont wood. They started with Canadian rye, but they've moved on to, having their own distilled products at this point. And so that seemed like their path. And then next thing you know, they're releasing a bourbon. Then next thing you know, they're releasing an aged single malt that they obviously didn't have anything to do with. Then they're releasing a Kentucky bourbon and now they've opened a tasting room in Louisville. To me, this has lost complete focus from what the brand set out to be, and that's what set it about from everybody else. If you're just going to be another brand doing a whole bunch of other things that you don't really, they're not focused, you're not set apart anymore.
Until the last 12 to 18 months, bourbons and whiskeys didn't need as robust a marketing department because it was almost selling it itself, right?
Yeah.
That's flipped on its head, and to your point, we're seeing more of these companies hire more people with more robust marketing chops, and that makes sense from a business perspective. You're going to have to focus your brand, focus your efforts to get through the downturn, and so I think that's smart business. We'll see how how all these folks do in the bourbon world. I mean, he's been in the spirits world. So.
Right, but those are mixers. I mean, that big company. So, I mean, it's a totally different part of the industry.
Company Spirits, their person came from the hotel industry, or
right?
the resort industry, which is
same thing. But yeah, it's just the focus. I mean, as I say in my newsletter, nobody's calling me about getting the CEO job. So what do I know? But what would set them apart from all the other whiskeys out there to me is to go back to being everything coming from Vermont and being Vermont focused. Right. And then there'd be something unique. And I go to Vermont and I visit them or go to their tasting rooms there. But, honestly, Louisville.
I'm not sure the market share for ryes and I mean, think about New York Empire rye and things like that. I mean, that's great. It's important they've done that. But from a growth perspective and even a maintenance perspective, I'm not sure Vermont rye has a big enough market or that they could ever grow it to be big enough. So I agree with you. I think it's a little bit unfocused, but I think they felt they had to broaden their product mix to try and stay, competitive.
But then you have to differentiate yourself from all the other similar brands out there.
Well, they got the cute pig decanters.
Well, they have some of the highest priced limited releases out there, so they've done it that way, but I'm not sure that's the best.
I know.
plan. But anyway, we will see what happens. Interested to see what Mr. Gibb does leading the company. All right, so moving on. Barrell Craft Spirits announced the sale of its blending and bottling facility in Jeffersontown, Kentucky, to American Craft Bottling. The company said it will consolidate all blending operations at its original Gilmore facility, which offers sufficient capacity to support current and future needs. They also will invest in new equipment and technology to expand their operations without disrupting ongoing work. Founder Joe Beatrice states that the move is part of an effort to refine our commercial strategy to stay ahead of evolving industry trends to support long-term growth. Got a theme here, and that was his quote.
I mean, this is people making a spin on the downturn, and that's fine. I mean, I think it's if they had a non-productive asset and they've been able to sell it off, good for them, right? There's some either you're knocking down debt service or you're actually getting some money in the door, and as long as they've got the capability to blend and bottle their products at another facility, that's a positive move. So sounds like smart business on Joe's part.
Well, but it's another one that's a little bit of a head scratcher because that facility, which quadrupled their capacity, had only opened just a few years ago.
It's brand
and
new.
then it almost immediately was rumored to be for sale. So that's when all those rumors started about Barrell itself going under. So, but it turns out that they indeed did basically get rid of it almost as soon as they got it. So that.
Well, and I think you pointed out that you couldn't find any information about the buyer, and I took a quick look and didn't find anything out either. I'm not sure it's going to be spirits necessarily, right? From the name, you couldn't really tell. American Craft Bottling, they could be bottling anything, it could be hot sauces. I mean,
well, I actually got I received a message on Instagram from somebody who had looked into this as well. And talking to people out there, a number of us tried to figure out what this American Craft Bottling was. But this person had said that they found it as a LLC registered in Wyoming. And interestingly, the registered agent is an attorney for Pernod Ricard. So that's very, very interesting. So, of course, they're going to have to get a DSP and things if they're going to do blending and bottling in Kentucky. So we should get a little more light about the company. But, if Pernod Ricard is buying it, that is interesting in itself since they have a half-built Jefferson's distillery that doesn't seem to be opening. You'd wonder what they wanted any other production facilities for.
Well, I mean, this is just a bottling facility, though, right?
But they have Rabbit Hole. I mean, I don't know how much more capacity they need.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed to me that the times I've been to Kentucky Artisan, which produces Jefferson's for the most part, they had limited bottling capacity there, and they do work for a bunch of different brands. Right. And so if Pernod Ricard is, as owner, they could be looking just for more more throughput. Who knows? I'm totally speculating.
Well, no, they could and be a co-packer, but
Right.
but I believe that's actually what Barrell's intentions were partly, and so
Yeah.
So again,
We'll see. I mean, sure, there'll be more releases about that once they actually take it over and do something with it. Hopefully, they will do something with it. It's not just going to sit there idle. You usually don't go buy something not to use it.
Yeah, I don't think we know the amount or anything.
No, I didn't see anything about that anymore.
Yeah.
So, I do see that Barrell still owns a rick house that's right next door. So that's interesting.
Yeah, because they bought that at around the same time or built it, and I was wondering about that because it is not mentioned in this sale, so
Right.
we're assuming they still own it. And that was what 18,000 barrels or something.
I think it was just 8,000.
Oh, just eight?
Eight, yeah. So, but that's pretty easily solved. You can just move those barrels to their existing facility. It's just to put them on a truck, right?
Well, they may. I mean, who knows? I mean, they've been around for quite a while. They could have 8,000 barrels in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure because they've been buying barrels for quite some time. I would assume. All right, so moving on to a little bit of a different story. The Washington State Senate voted 26-23 to approve legislation lowering the state's legal blood alcohol concentration limit for drivers from 0.8% to 0.5%. If approved by the House and signed into law, Washington would join Utah as the only states with a 0.05% limit, with the change taking effect July 1st. Supporters said the measure would improve public safety and reduce fatal crashes involving impaired drivers. Opponents argued the change would not alter drinking and driving behavior, said stronger enforcement efforts such as hiring more state troopers and expanding DUI patrols would be more effective, and cited concerns about enforcing the lower limit as well as potential impacts on bars, wineries, and other hospitality businesses. Senate Bill 5067 now moves to the House for consideration.
So, and to be clear, this is just Washington State. It's one state. The sponsor of this bill used to be a state police officer in Washington. And so to the point about more enforcement rather than lowering the limit, this sponsor probably had some firsthand, hands-on experience with, intoxicated drivers. Washington had 809 vehicular deaths in 2023, and 409 of those involved impaired drivers, so roughly 50%. That's a pretty high percentage.
Yeah.
There was some, in the newspaper article, there were some statistics from Utah, which saw a 20% drop in impaired collisions, vehicle deaths, but no decline in sales of spirits. So if that holds true, then this is sort of a no harm, no foul. I'm not sure. I have no plans of drinking and driving in Washington State, so it doesn't bother me. But I'm not sure it's really not going to hurt. I don't think sales in any sizable degree.
Although when it said that sales thing, it didn't say if that was a shift. So bars and restaurants are no longer selling it, and package stores are. So
right, yeah, exactly right. People are just going to buy it and drink it at home, right?
Right, and so just like dry January and things like that, once you stop buying things at restaurants and bars, there's a huge trickle down effect on that business, all the servers, everything that's related to it. So. I guess that would have to be looked into more for an impact. Well, on the surface, it's fine,
right.
But it could actually have a huge impact if you move sales from bars and restaurants to stores.
Stores, right?
But yeah, interesting. Obviously, it's difficult to argue against making it more strict about drinking and driving because those statistics are insane. 50%.
Yeah, we want people to be responsible drinkers, right? And
Yeah.
if it takes a little bit having a stick out there as a lower limit, again, Utah apparently didn't see a drop in sales. If that's any indication, to your point though, if it does shift it, that impacts jobs.
But obviously, we don't want people dying on the roads.
With more people moving to mocktails and non-alcoholics, as long as you're still going out and buying something at your local watering holes, those people will stay employed. So
eat more expensive food.
So there you go. You don't make choice anymore, do you?
Well, you can still get the price up there.
Yeah, right. You can. You can.
You can go to bars and just order an extra round of appetizers instead of drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking would become even more fattening than it is already, as we know from my calorie counter that nobody seems pleased with the results of. Okay, so moving on. So Sotheby's, the Great American Whiskey Collection auction held by Sotheby's. I'm never sure how to pronounce that, actually. Sotheby's?
Sotheby's, yeah. I think that's right.
On January 24, realized a total of $2.5 million in sales, more than doubling its pre-sale estimates and setting a new record for an American whiskey auction at Sotheby's. The auction was described by Sotheby's, I put that in here as much as possible so I could learn how to say it, as the first ever live single-owner American whiskey auction, offering the most valuable collection of its kind ever to come to market. According to Sotheby's, 100% of lots sold and 89% exceeded their high estimates, marking a milestone for the category and reflecting strong demand for rare and historic U.S. whiskeys. And I've just got a few of the highlights, which I think are the most expensive. But when it talked about 100% of the lots being sold and 89% exceeding their high estimates, they exceeded it by a lot.
Yeah.
So these are the some of the biggies. So Old Rip Van Winkle 20-year-old single barrel Sam's, it's a private barrel, $162,500 from 1982. But who wouldn't want a 20-year-old at 133.4 proof?
Yep.
So that's something we don't see.
Nope.
Very, very old Fitzgerald, 18-year-old Blackhawk. So that's related to the Blackhawks, the owners, I believe. And that was $112,500 from 1950 and for 121 proof. So again, these are not your modern day versions.
These are unicorns.
And Van Winkle, 18-year-old single barrel Binny's Pick, so the liquor store chain in Chicago. Actually, Blackhawks also. What's with Chicago? I don't know where that Sam's is from. But anyway, so $106,250, and that's from 1985, and also at 121.6 proof. Would love to try these.
Some of these, right?
Though it's never going to happen.
I know, right. Yeah, I mean, this was 96% of the buyers were from North America, so that's it. And about half the buyers were younger than 40, which I think is the most positive stat from all of this, which is, okay, there's another generation. Look, you don't have to drink it, but if you collect it, that's good for the industry, right? Just keep on buying the bottles, and bourbon is clearly still a valuable investment for those who look at it that way. And this just sort of cements that. I don't know. I couldn't figure out who the owner was that they were selling on behalf of.
I don't think they said it.
I didn't dig down very far to try and find that out. But kudos to that person, because, Sotheby's knocked it out of the park for this person.
Well, they definitely knocked it up. I mean, as always, you wonder, will any of these ever be tasted?
Right.
As with anything that reaches this point. Yeah, and to your point about that, I think that demographic, as far as their investing, has less faith in the stock market and more interested in other types of investments, such as things that are actually tangible goods like this. So, that probably explains.
We'll see. Maybe they'll turn these into NFTs, right? And we can all buy a little share.
Well, people have already done that. I can't think of the name of those companies offhand, but there's ones out there that have already done that.
We're not recommending that, by the way.
No, honestly, I don't know what you're supposed to do with once things get this old and expensive, because I'm sure there's plenty of people in the world that can afford to buy a $106,000 bottle and pop it and drink it, but I'm not one of them.
No,
I don't think I know anybody
I don't think of my friends
who is. Yeah. But so for the average person who's buying this, what are you going to do with it? There's no way you can't afford to drink it. Frankly, you need to get your money back on it, which then turns these things just into collectibles, and they're no longer these amazing sounding whiskeys that any whiskey fan would absolutely love to try. Yes. But it's tough. There's just very few people that can afford to buy these things and drink them.
It'd be interesting to see if some of your vintage pour places, Jack Rose's comes to mind. It's certainly possible that some of these, probably not the three at the top end there, but if there was an OFC that sold for like $47,500.
I know some of these bars definitely buy from there, because I know a fact of some that do. So they go to these auctions to get them. But yeah, these, what do you do with them? I mean, what's a $10,000 pour? I mean,
Right.
Again, you're already down to, if you can afford the $10,000 pour, you probably could have afforded to buy the bottle at the auction. So
Yeah, maybe it's horse farm owner. We could talk to some of the horse farm owners. Maybe.
we can become a horse farm owner. No, I don't.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no. All right, so moving on. So McTavish Spirits announced a strategic partnership with DMY Brands, a brand development and distribution firm led by industry veteran David Mark Young, formerly of the whiskey brand Golden Sheath. McTavish Spirits is co-founded by actor and author Graham McTavish and whiskey entrepreneur Connor Gilbert. The partnership brings together founder-led storytelling and craftsmanship with DMY Brands' expertise in logistics, hard goods execution, distribution strategy, and brand development, with a focus on expanding market presence while building the operational foundation for long-term sustainable growth, according to the parties involved. Graham McTavish said the partnership will help bring McTavish Spirits to more people without losing what makes McTavish Spirits unique in the marketplace, while Connor Gilbert, co-founder and CEO, said the importance of disciplined execution, or emphasized the importance of disciplined execution as the brand continues to grow.
So DMY Brands is apparently David Mark Young. I think that's where the DMY comes from.
Yeah.
And he worked with a brand called Golden Sheath, which I have seen but don't know too much about.
Actually, I know David and I know the brand. They were very good whiskeys. I mean, what he did, it's almost a little bit akin to the Pursuit, but different states. He got good whiskeys from multiple different places. I mean, offhand, I think there might have been an Alabama in one of his, along with like a Kentucky and Tennessee, or I don't remember the exact blends, but he made some very good whiskey, and he's since sold that brand and started this business.
That's great. I mean, again, here's another company that's bringing on an outside, an industry person, but somebody to focus on not just marketing, but brand development, whole logistics and things like that. And that's a sign of, sounds like here it's a sign of growth. And that's, again, a positive thing. So
Yeah. Have you tried any of the McTavish?
I've got one, but I haven't cracked it.
Yeah,
I've
never tried
Bourbon on
it.
the Banks, actually, is where I got one. So I think it was finished in a peated Scotch barrel, which is why I bought it. I could be misremembering this, but I think that's what I've got. So it's
Well, and Connor Gilbert was with the original Bourbon with Friends podcast back when that started. I'd gone to their charity event at the Kentucky Castle a long time ago. I don't know, as usual, also I've completely lost track of time, so I don't remember exactly when that was. But I think that whole podcast has changed personnel as well since then, and he's since moved on to this. But yeah, I need to try these someday. Moving on. So Misunderstood Whiskey Company announced the 4th year of its annual Misunderstood for Good charitable initiative in recognition of National Cancer Prevention Month. To date, the campaign has raised more than $20,000 for families battling cancer, with all proceeds benefiting the JDJ Charitable Foundation. Through February, Misunderstood Whiskey will donate $1 for every 750 milliliter bottle sold across its core portfolio, including Misunderstood Ginger Spiced Whiskey and Misunderstood Orange Blossom Bourbon. J.D. Recubs, CEO and co-founder of Misunderstood Brands, said the company is committed to supporting the JDJ Foundation year after year, while Chris Buglisi, CFO and co-founder, emphasized the importance of giving back to the hospitality community. Bars and restaurants are also invited to participate by featuring Misunderstood cocktails during the campaign, with an additional donation being made by Misunderstood Whiskey and prizes awarded for the most creative Misunderstood cocktail. The JDJ Charitable Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit founded by James Blauvelt that provides direct financial assistance to families battling cancer, supports students affected by cancer through scholarship, and funds cancer research. So, very good cause.
Very good cause. And I looked at their website just a little bit. They're in New York City. Their stated purpose is to create a volunteer network for young urban professionals to help, families going through cancer. They also help buy wheelchairs for kids, pediatric wheelchairs. So sounds like a good organization. Sounds like a good good mix there. A good choice. I misunderstood. They put out products like Orange Blossom bourbon and the ginger spiced whiskeys. So,
but they do those oat milk products because remember we talked about them like a month ago because they had an agreement to do bottling and production at Bardstown Bourbon Company. It was the same episode when we also talked about Bardstown's new bottling facility that they're doing or expanding. I can't remember which. So it all ties together. So our last news story is Bourbon Women, the country's first national whiskey organization created by and for women, is celebrating its 15-year anniversary in 2026 with a year-long lineup of events and programming across its 16 branch locations. Founded by Peggy No Stevens, Bourbon Women plans to mark the milestone with a special 15th anniversary whiskey blend, expanded premium education offerings, luxury tripette getaways, virtual events, and the annual Symposium Conference taking place August 13 to 16 in Louisville. The organization also announced plans for its first global expansion in 2026, with additional details to be shared later in the year.
I think that's a great milestone, for this organization. They look, again, just looking at the website, they're a very robust organization. They have regular events all around the country.
Yeah.
And looks like most of them sell out, in advance. And so I think that's awesome. What a great way to promote our native spirit,
Yeah.
Keep the drinking numbers up.
No, it's impressive. I didn't realize they have been around for 15 years, and the 16 branch locations. I knew they had chapters or whatever they're called, branches in other cities. I didn't realize there were that many of them. And that symposium, their conference, sounds great. Every year I look at the programming and what they do.
And there's, as we know, there's just an awful lot of very, very smart, very talented women in the bourbon industry, and it's great that they have this, again, an excellent organization that's helping bring them all together.
Yeah, so good for them. Congratulations. All right, so it brings us to our last topic now, and it's a biggie. Uncle Nearest, the receivership. We've got a bit of an update here, and this recap was written by Karen, who you all know is my lovely and knowledgeable wife, who serves as occasional podcast host.
And it's good because as an attorney, I would have made a summary like 3 times this long. So she's done an excellent job of condensing things and bringing out the salient points. So
she did, and I'll say where the information came from because it's included in the summary instead of saying it now. But all right, so last August, Tennessee's Uncle Nearest Inc., producer of Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskeys, was placed into receivership, a process where an independent, neutral third party, the receiver, is appointed to take control of a distressed business or property at the request of Farm Credit Mid-America. The request was granted by the court after Uncle Nearest failed to continue repayment of its debt obligations to FCMA to the tune of approximately $108 million. The following information comes directly from the court documents filed and thus accessible to the public on PACER, Public Access to Electronic Court Records. These records have been meticulously dissected by Michael DeKaiser. Sorry, Mike, if that's not how you pronounce your last name. The host and talented author of the BourbonandRyeClub.com. DeKaiser has followed the case from the beginning and is an expert on the topic. On Monday, February 2nd, the receiver filed the second quarterly report for Uncle Nearest Inc. at the behest of the court. The information presented in these documents is extensive. For the purposes of this update, only a few of the bombshells will be highlighted. Prior to the receivership, the company was unprofitable by approximately $1 million per month, and these are what the receiver said. Under my guidance, the unprofitability has decreased to $100,000 per month. Number 2 is the company's CEO and CFO represented to the receiver that the company's unsecured debt was substantially less than $10 million. It was discovered that it eclipsed $50 million. Point number 3, the receiver discovered that the company has not filed federal tax returns since 2018. And number 4, the company cannot operate in this receivership in perpetuity. However, the company is insolvent. The cessation of business would cause the loss of nearly 70 jobs and the disappearance of a brand with significant social and cultural value. So what's next? The judge overseeing the case has set a hearing for Monday, February 9th, the date of this podcast. The hearing will address motions filed by both the receiver and the defendants, Fawn and Keith Weaver, owners of Uncle Nearest, Inc. The defendants will request removal of the receivership, claiming that it is eroding the brand's value with declining sales and that they are the company's best option to continue the brand. The receiver, on the other hand, will request expansion of the receivership as he has discovered commingling of Uncle Nearest funds with other companies the defendants own. Whichever way the judge rules, the future of Uncle Nearest looks bleak. And before we discuss, just another shout out to the bourbonandryeclub.com if you want to know everything about this proceedings. He has documented it in depth with some commentary as well, going all the way back to when this started in August. Yes. So every detail.
You can spend a lot of time, and he reads through virtually all of these things. You mentioned the tech point, that Pacer bill. Pacer gives people access to court filings, but it's 10 cents a page, which doesn't sound like much, but all of a sudden you've got a bank and a receiver and the Weavers filing hundreds of pages. That adds up. So if you like what Mike is doing, I think you can help him pay his Pacer bill. I think he's not really taking donations, but he'll take donations to pay the Pacer bill. So
I think he's taking donations for the feral cats they take care of.
Yeah. So so anyway, I love what he's done with the cat theme on that, but we're not going to stray into that because we'll be here forever. But when a company hasn't filed its tax returns for 7 years, that is never a good sign. I mean, in my business, I see clients regularly who have not kept up with their taxes, but 7 years is a long time. And there are also some, apparently, records prior to 2024 have been lost or deleted. So, one might ask, how do we prepare a 2020 tax return when there are no financial records? Banks keep records. There's a way to do it, but it makes it way more expensive. And, there's no mention of potential tax liabilities in all of this. But even if you don't owe taxes, the fact that you didn't file returns means you're going to owe penalties and things like that. So that, again, it's digging a deeper hole here. Yeah. Things are not looking well for this company. This hearing, the judge, they were asked to do several days, and the judge said, no, you all can get this done in one day. Some of what was filed were affidavits from people to shorten things up, to speed things up, right? Write down what you're going to say, swear to it. That way you don't have to spend time, on the stand answering questions. So all that is pretty standard court management. Some other debt things that just jumped out at me from the Bourbon and Rye Club are, this company, Uncle Nearest, used a payroll company to manage his payroll. That's common. But this payroll company was financing the payroll. That's not common.
Yeah, I did. That seems crazy when I saw that.
You got $100 million loan, but you can't make payroll. You're having to have your payroll company front that. That's just, that's a unique business practice I have not run across before.
Well, it makes you think that, and we don't know any of this for a fact, but it makes you think that somehow those businesses are intertwined as well.
Right.
Because why else would they
Why would they do that? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Not only that, there are some what I call merchant cash advance loans. So we know individuals, you can go to a check cashing and you can get money against your paycheck, right? Well, there's a similar thing called merchant cash advances where you can get money pretty quickly from a lender just by giving them some tax returns, and you're conceptually selling your future receipts to these companies, and you sell, for example, $150,000 of receipts and you get $80,000. It's a very bad business deal. But they've got 3 or 4 of those loans. The company's called Biz Funder and Dash Funding. Those are in the 6 figures. Dash Funding's $1.2 million, and so.
Oh wow!
Here's other debts that.
So you wouldn't take loans like that. Unless you absolutely had to.
Those are last-ditch loans because you don't really have to qualify. You just have to show them that there's been money coming in through the bank account. And they always set these up where they automatically draft the bank account every day or every week.
Well, they have to because they're not. Well, first of all, you're not taking it unless you have an issue.
Right.
And second, the payments on them are just so huge.
I have seen some companies that have been able to use these to get over a short-term funding gap where they know there's money coming and they're just waiting on it. But what I normally see is these things spiral. You get one, you get another, you get all of a sudden you got four of them, and the effective interest rates on these are 30 to 100%. And I don't know any business that has that kind of a margin to make it work.
Well, it's the same thing that happens to anybody that becomes dependent on like credit cards or those payday loans. It's just a downward spiral, and it's very hard to get out of because the amount of money that it takes.
The other thing that I think is important is a couple things. One is the parties asked to seal a lot of the records, and everybody pretty much agreed with that. The judge said, no, here's the guidelines for when you seal information in federal court. Nobody's alleged that it meets any of these guidelines, and so when you all file stuff, go back and file the receiver's report and things like that. And so that's where a lot of this information comes from, are these things that have been now filed and are of public record. Big dispute over what the value of this company is. So we went to Four Roses, $775 million. Their 2024 sales were $170 million. When you sell something, you look at it a multiple of revenues, right? Okay, so if it had $140 million in sales, that's $775 million, is 4.5 times sales. Uncle Nearest's sales in 2024, once the receiver got in there, turned out to be $41 million. So you multiply that times 4, it's 1.6-ish, but, yeah, well, I guess that'd be whatever. It's not enough to pay off everybody. All right, let's be clear. And it's not going to bring that because it's in a receivership, right? It's no Four Roses. Four Roses has lots of aging barrels. It has some wonderful facilities. Uncle Nearest, not so much. So Miss Weaver's been arguing that it should bring a multiple. I think she was using a 12 times multiplier. Somebody should put on what we call an expert witness about how do you value a business and all that at this hearing on Monday. And so it'll be interesting to me to see if somebody actually does call a witness that says, I do this for a living, I value companies, here's what I think this is worth, because I don't think it's going to be millions and millions or tens of millions of dollars. So,
well, it seems like somebody has to do that if someone realistically was going to purchase it anyway.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, any interested buyer is going to have somebody look at this kind of information, and there's probably an industry standard in the bourbon industry. I don't know what it is, but for those watching and listening at home, my prediction is the judge will grant the receiver's motion to bring these other companies in and deny the Weaver's motion to get rid of the receivership. As the receiver and Farm Credit pointed out, look, if you remove me, Farm Credit's just going to foreclose and sell this stuff on the courthouse steps. That's the worst thing for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
well, we won't have long to wait because it's all going to happen just a few hours after the podcast goes live.
Yeah, the judge may not rule right away. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things for him to think about.
So the ruling could be a while from now.
He's been moving very quickly in this case. I mean, he knows that it's urgent. I mean, Humble Baron that operates, I guess, the restaurant and the bar on site laid off virtually all of its employees recently. So things are going this way, not that way.
All right. All right. Well, a lot going on here, so we'll have to see what happens. And do you have quick summaries of some of the other ones that are going on?
Stoli and Kentucky Owl. There was some news that they were going to, basically they tried to negotiate, didn't work. They said, we're just going to convert this to a liquidating bankruptcy. Fifth Third, the main lender, came in and said, we don't want to do that. That gets the worst result for everybody. We want to have what's called a Chapter 11 trustee appointed. And so that's somebody who will, it's similar to what this receiver is doing, okay? But they're going to wind down Stoli USA and Kentucky Owl. They'll figure out the best way to get the most money for those assets as opposed to just a Chapter 7 trustee would not do that. They would just call in an auctioneer and sell stuff. So this person or people, there's an issue right now about whether they do a different trustee for each company or have one do both of them. and Fifth Third and the government arm who does the trustees, called the United States Trustee, are talking about that, and I think they'll probably come to an agreement, and then they'll actually be on appointed. So that's going on there. At the end of this month, 27th, bid deadlines for Luca Mariano assets. So those of our listeners who are interested in buying a small distillery in Boyle County, you got about 3 weeks to get your act together and submit a bid.
Is your bid in?
My bid is not in. I have enough troubles. I don't need to buy a distillery right now. I'm gonna try and keep the distilleries alive by buying bottles. Okay.
All right. Well, that about does it for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon and Distillery News Podcast, your commercial-free and therefore money-free bourbon podcast. We'll be back next Monday for our new Bourbon Releases News podcast. Also, be sure to like and follow us at your preferred podcast provider so that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to tell all your friends too. You can also head over to bourbonobsessed.com to check out some of our over 350 bourbon reviews and over 50 distillery write-ups. While you are there, you can also sign up to have my newsletters delivered directly to your inbox. Finally, I can also be found on Instagram at bourbon_obsessed and on Facebook at Bourbon Obsessed, and would love for you to follow me there as well. Dean, where can they find you?
Folks find me on Instagram only at Dean of Bourbon. I'll get up some pics from the Whiskey Row adventures yesterday and the next day or so, and y'all can enjoy that vicariously. So thank you all for geeking out with us.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Cheers.